Hi everyone, my name is Lola Aneke and it's another episode of Finding Help with Special Needs. If you're watching this, that means I am not available for the live Facebook and Instagram session. And like I do whenever I'm not available for genuine reasons, I try to do a video so we don't miss out totally on what I have in mind to discuss with us. So, reason being that I've been on several trips to different places to conduct the special needs educators summer camp, and right now I'm in Port Harcourt for the last phase of the special needs educators summer camp. It will be done by Saturday evening. However, my flight might not make it possible for me to be with you on Sunday by 4 p.m. So I thought to do this just in case I'm not able to meet up with the time. So let's get to work. Last week we talked about the ABCs of behavior, and we talked about what A means, what B means, and what C means. We also talked about the 4 functions of behavior, which we said was attention. We also said it could be escape or avoidance of task. We also said it could be for sensory, and then it could also be the last one, attendance, sensory, avoidance of task, and access to tangible. And we also said that sometimes the behavior could be as a result of, could be for more than one function. So that was what we talked about last week. This week I chose a topic that says a few words or no words at all, because I realized that in my line of duty, like I always say, most of the things I talk about is from the experience I have with parents and therapists, be it behavior therapists, educational therapists, or general service provider for children with special needs. And most times you hear them say, oh, some parents will say my child is talking. Others will say my child does not use his words and I want him to use his words. And then we realize that because of the expectation in this part of the world, it's either the words or the words. So there's no other option. And then when you're trying to bring in alternative or augmentative means of communication, the parents will not have it. I've had my own fair share of such situation, and I've seen this going on between the parents and service providers. So the first thing I'd like to explain is that speech, language, communication have the various meaning to us as human beings, and we need to understand where and what that is. And then sometimes when we say the word speak, talk means there's a sender and a receiver, just the way communication is. So let's first start with the definition of what speech is. So speech is a neuromuscular activity that is involved in forming words. So the words I am speaking right now, there are a lot of muscles and some nerves in the brain and physiological structure that we call speech helpers that I've been able to say all that I'm saying to you. Some individuals have challenges, and we have various types of speech delay, or disorder. So there's a difference between delay and disorder, and that's just mean that when there's a disorder, it means that it could be the chances of the person being able to speak is between is a 50-50 chances, so it's possible that the person will speak. But if it's a delay and there's proper evidence and research-based intervention to help this individual to use speech, by the time the person has done this for like 8 years of his life, then we could say, and that it is an improvement, we could say it's a delay. However, if such challenges has gotten some form of intervention that is accurate in the sense that it's research and evidence-based and not just trial or try to do what you think it could be the person by professionals, and the person is still not able to make optimal progress, then we could say that the person is living with a disorder or a disability. So those are the differences between the disorder and a disability. Now let's go back to the issue of when parents say that my child speaks or my child can talk. Just the way we define the word speech, it's also good for us to understand language, what language is, because if we understand what speech is, we see that there's a combination of vowels and consonants to give us meaningful words. So it could be two words, two-letter words. It could be three-letter words. It could be two-syllable words, three-syllable words, and then those words will be formed into sentences, and that's where you can see that speech is being used. But when you talk about language, so those words like the word cat, the word come, the words give, is now English language, and that's how it is even for other languages like Yoruba language. French has its own language. So we have the Spanish language, we have the German language. So if an individual has a disorder in that language, maybe they violate the codes of language, and we know that the various codes of language is phonology, semantic, pragmatic, syntax, and phonology, pragmatic, syntax, semantics, and morphology, and those are like big grammar. And I know what I try to do with finding help with special needs is to try and make things easy, but these are the codes. So as opposed to saying C for saw, understanding the prefix and the graphic, and the prefix and the suffix of words, understanding when to use past tense and present tense, when to use them in isolation. A word might have a meaning together in a sentence, but when it stands alone in isolation, sometimes the meaning changes. Some of our children living with specialists, autism, Down syndrome, those are intellectual disabilities. Some children with learning disability also have challenges with this, but particularly children with autism, most times they speak, but when they are not communicating, so they speak in the sense that they use words, but most of the time we want them to use functional language, the ability to use this word to make meaning, to make requests, to express their dissatisfaction about something, to express their feelings, what they need, what they do not need. That's what most times we want, some of the goals, some of the crucial goals we want to achieve with these children. So when a parent says to a service provider, my child speaks or my child can talk, and then the service provider or the professional does some form of informal assessment and realizes that this child is actually using words, the child has speech, however, and then that's why we have to be careful when we say a child speaks or a child talks. When you talk, what is expected of the word speaking and talking is that you are making, there's an exchange, there's decoding and encoding going on, there's a medium the person uses, and there's a feedback to what the person is. When a parent says to a service provider that their child talks, we need to find out what exactly it is, because we could say talk is synonymous to communication. Well, children talk, yeah, but then, like I said earlier on, we need to be sure of the function of that communication. Is it for expressing need, dissatisfaction, want? What is it? So for children with special autism in particular, most times parents will say to us that my child talks, and you're observing the child, you're trying to find out what words the child uses and how best he uses and when it's being used. And you could be at an observation with the child for as long as 2-3 hours, and that child may not say a single word to you. Especially when you are trying to do a proper formal informal observation with the child. And then you realize that maybe after you let the child even sometimes when you're doing an informal observation, you could have the child with his pair, you could have the child in his natural environment, just to take stock of the words the child uses. And then you might just be there for an hour or two and the child will never use any words. That's why some people will say, that child only talks when he wants to talk, and we are wondering the functional use of language. Would I say that it's actually talking when the child just exhibits echolalia, where the child just be on his own and just start using those words? Most time those words, and that's why I put the topic, a few words or no words at all, and then we'll go into that. And then the child just on his own by himself just uses the words, and you're thinking, oh, mama said to me this child can talk, but this child I've been here or trying to observe the child with his peers in his natural environment with toys and all of that, and he's not saying a word to me. Sometimes they don't even get to experience when they're on their own and keep using that word or singing that song. And the parents convinced that their children talk. According to them, they say that this child talks because he uses words. And that's why I like to try to make it clear. Yes, the child has got speech. Yes, is a child using the speech in language, and is a language expressing communication, which is a back and forth experience. And there must be a medium, which is the word the child is using. So most time the child might have the medium, which is the words itself, but they might not be a receiver. They might not be a receiver and a sender. And when you talk about communication, it has to be holistic, it has to be complete, and that's where we have such issues. But I also said to parents, and I said to service provider, that the good thing is that the child has speech. Now, how do we build the speech? Or sometimes the child has word. How do we help to make the words more functional? So that's about the use of words of speech to form words, and then it takes it next to communication. Now, another thing that I would like to discuss here, which I know will be beneficial to parents and service provider, is when you talk about reading, writing, and communication and speech, it goes hand in hand. So when you say, oh, the child cannot communicate, and therefore the child cannot be in your classroom, or parents will say, okay, my child, when he talks, he uses these words, he can still learn. They are correct depending on what perspective you are looking at it from. So if you are a good literacy teacher, we need to understand the 5 components of language. And I've said to people, I have children that I've worked with, and they do not, so they have some level of speech, so depending on the disability, be it speech delay, or autism, or Down syndrome, or intellectual disability, which most of the syndromes are examples of. There's a challenge with communication. We need to know where we are and know where to begin. But the secret is that once you understand the components of literacy, of reading, then it makes it easier for you to be able to communicate with the child. And like I say to people, if a child can write down his needs and we can actually read it, that's communication, because there's a sender, there's a receiver, there's an encoding taking place, and there's a decoding taking place, and there's a medium, which is writing. Then the child is communicating. Thankfully, we have advanced technology. I call it advanced in the sense that these things, somebody was saying the other day that what you think is the best form of technology get obsolete in the next few months, weeks, and something new comes up. So if you look advanced today, but tomorrow it's actually obsolete, So, but the one that like there are several apps. So the other day I heard about Let Me Talk. There are other ones that could help children with speech impairment or delay. But before you can do that, you have to be able to put the reading ability or the components of reading. You must have taught that child so that the child knows how graphemes and phonemes work. So the letter itself is a grapheme, and the word, the sound is a phoneme. How the child can just put this together. So we know that there are 5 components of reading. We have phonics, phonology, we have vocabulary, fluency, and reading comprehension. And it's almost the same thing as comprehension, ability to understand what you've heard or read. So it could be written and it could be spoken. So if we say our children have challenges with spoken words, yes, and we want to help them communicate alternatively or augmentatively, you could decide to use first. I always say before we move to sign language, let's try the pathway of using the components of reading to help them achieve that. So even the child is not speaking and the child is receptive, ability to decode words, we can begin by using pictures to show them the letters and the sound and how it's being pronounced. So for example, I wanted to teach the child the simple word as cat, which is the phoneme of the letters CAT, and then you begin to teach them from that phonics. You go into phonemic awareness, where the child knows how to manipulate sound, remove a word and put in another letter. So if I wanted to say cat, if I wanted to say the word cat and I needed to be bat, I just take out the k and then I put in the b. If I wanted the bat to turn to boat, then I bring the phonic and the word, the graphs, and then I have BOAT and then the silent is, which is the phonological awareness. That way you begin to develop vocabulary, and that's when vocabulary comes in, the different words and the meanings and when to use them. You can imagine going through this process as a speech expert or a speech therapist or someone that understands reading, because most of the words we use is, thankfully in Nigeria, English is our official language. So if you understand the dynamics that takes place from phonics to phonemic awareness to vocabulary and then to fluency, which is the ability to read without error, and when you're able to read without error, somehow, like I said, speech, reading and writing goes hand in hand. That means comprehension of spoken language becomes the next thing. So we have comprehension, and then that person or that child who we say cannot read can understand the dynamics and be able to apply it. So once you've taught that, the child can actually put down his or her thoughts in writing. And like I was saying earlier about technology, we have different kinds of app that we can use for these children to help them. But when you don't understand the dynamics or how the 5 components of reading is being used, they will not be able to apply what they're trying to say. So if, for example, a child who's not speaking now understand this based on you using several strategies like the picture, using the strategies of understanding the principle of the components of language, reading, which is English language, the child can now type. So if I've told the child, I want milk, I want sugar, the child can type it, and the device could help the child to communicate, because most importantly we want to hear, we want to be able to decode what the child is saying, and then the child now. So when the child writes I want milk, and probably you don't want to give milk, and you say can you have water, the child could say no by writing no, and like that. And then of course you could also decide to use sign language, but they don't. I am all for sign language, but it has its own challenges. So I try to weigh which is, from my experience, which is more limited or not as limited as the other. So I said to myself, okay, look, it's just logical. If I'm able to put the child through the components of reading and the child understand how words are being used in sentences, comprehension has taken place, fluency, vocabulary use, and all of that has taken place, it might be easier for the child to communicate with people, because it's the normal language. The child just typed it out and then it speaks out for the child, if that is, we're using text-to-speech device. And then I compared it with sign language. Like I said, I am all for it. I have sign language expert. I've used it for most of my kids also, but I realized that it's quite limiting. There's no interpreter, or the people around the child cannot sign with the child. So most times at the Jill Jobs Community Center for Specialists and the Cadet Academy, we always advise that immediate family come for to learn how to use sign language, so they come to us, or we teach them also that they can communicate with the child. Because be it sign language or not, if the child is not able to use it, then he's also going to lose that skill. So it's very important that if you're going to teach sign language to a child, make sure that the parent or the immediate family members are able to sign with the child. But what I realized with the limitation of sign language is that if the interpreter is not around, the child cannot still communicate to people. So I could go good morning or good afternoon, and someone else might not understand what that means, and I'm still limited in my communication skills. But imagine if I have the tool of ability to write out what I'm trying to say, even if I do not have the app, it's beyond my reach. I can actually write what I'm trying to say. Oh, I need help. I want water. Somebody can actually read it and respond back to me. I remember years back, even when I was still not into the field, I was being like 15. I met this person on the road, and he was like trying to say to me to come, and then he wrote, "Oh, could you help me cross the road?" I'm like, "Oh, really?" So that means, imagine if that person had, and I could understand what he was trying to say, and then I helped him cross the road. But imagine if he was saying it in sign language. I don't understand. It's not a universal language. With due respect to sign language, I'm all for it. So please don't get me wrong. I'm only trying to talk about the limitation. If someone else cannot sign, then you are limited in the use of sign language. But when you are able to understand the use of English language based on the 5 components, then it's easier to be able to communicate to people. So that's what I was trying to put across today. Would you rather have no words at all, or would you have a few words or no words at all? Above all, what would you want? You want to communicate with that child. You want the child to make his basic request, satisfaction, need known to you. So these are some ideas and ways we can help these individuals with speech disorder and delay, or communication disorder and delay, to be able to communicate with us. Because we look at it in the real sense, all we want is for this individual to communicate with us, and all they want to reduce their frustrations, be able to for us understand what they're going through and be able to communicate with them. So I hope this few discussion I've had with us today has really been helpful. And don't forget that this comes up every Sunday between the hours of 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So I look forward to seeing you again next week, Sunday. And like I always say, till I come your way again on Finding Help with Special Needs, I remain yours truly, Lola Aneke. Thank you so much for tuning in again today. Have a great week, and I hope it's a fruitful one for you. Thank you.